course, one person less in this 1 week is very important. I mean, apart from the time. And in this case, the group worked on the Cerved Dataset that is mainly about enterprises data and their connection with the startups. And we have Cerved 2 today, so thanks a lot again. Yesterday night we had some problem with the resolution of the screen. Probably this is fixed today. I think yes.
Right? Yeah, it should be. I don't know, it worked 2 hours ago, so if it doesn't, we'll see. Okay, hi. We're going to end up talking about a project that tries to map the Italian startup scene. As you'll see in between here and there was a whole other phase that didn't go so smoothly. So, okay, so anyways, I'm Orion Penner. I'm an assistant professor of economics and statistical physics at IMT Lucca, which is an institute for advanced study in Lucca, Tuscany. And this is Carlo.
I'm Carlo. I work for a large company, Italian company in the energy sector in information security. And our dataset is offered by Cerved Group. The data are mainly about business data of all Italian companies. Economic data, also there are news about all the company that appeared on newspapers. This is the dataset structure. We don't have data about all Italian companies, but we have data about all Italian startup companies and a subset of companies related to the province of Turin. Also, we have data about companies' shareholders and managers, directors, people who have legal tasks in the company. And also, we have news data about in time about all these companies. So these are the numbers. There are 2,000 startups, and this is for all Italy, so 2,000 companies. And about the provincia di Torino, we have 200,000 companies. For every company, we have the name, the location, activity description, the data about the status, if the company is alive or not, number of employees, and then we have financial and economic data, revenues, capital data, profits, cash flow, all the economic parameters. In the people dataset, we have 6,000 people. We have the name of the person, codice fiscale, which is like social security number, sex, and other data. And in the news, we have 100,000 headlines, and for each headline, there is the link to the company to which the news is referred, and the name of the source of this news. Okay, all these data sets are linked together, and people are linked to companies for which they have a role, a legal role of responsibility. And also companies and people are linked if there is an ownership link, because if a company owns a part or all another company, they are linked. Okay, so
I don't think there's, we just covered most of this, I think. So we can kind of talk about, I'll take over and talk about the initial idea. So the initial idea is that because we have the data set of all companies operating and reporting in Piemonte, we would look at basically what's over the last 15 years been a very large dismantling of the fiat empire. So at the top, there's a company called Exor, which is the Agnelli family is controlling that, and then it goes into Fiat SPA, and then you have a very large, what in the economics literature is called a value chain. So there's a whole bunch of different companies at this level that there's no obvious connection between, but you can link to them through the ownership relationships. And the initial idea was that we would basically extract this and any other large ones. There's a few, like Intesa, and there's a few other companies that have a structure like this operating in our data set. And we would follow the dismantling, the shrinking, the changes that have come to this structure over the last, say, 20 years. The idea was we were going to use financial data, longitudinal financial data. So seeing how the number of employees these firms have, how their revenue goes year to year. You can't tell when a piece is sold off. That's actually a very difficult problem in data sets like this, but you can, using the financial data and seeing when large disruptions happen in the different values, you can pull that out. And then using a timeline of news headlines, we were hoping to be able to track the major events that actually resulted in these disruptions, these shocks to the value chain. So we had kind of this idea at the beginning, which was, this was the martini glass model, where you come in and you tell a story about fiat, and then you end up with an observatory of the value chains that are existing in Piemonte, how they've changed, come up with a score, stuff like that. This was maybe the first drawing of the value chain and what we were doing. And then, yeah, just more stuff. There was a map that came in at some point in time, and then stuff like that. The challenge is, so, like I said, this isn't at all what we ended up with. So one issue was the Cerved guys came back really, really quick with us with data that we requested, but the longitudinal financial data was like a bridge too far. And I mean, I understand. It's an extremely large data set, and it's hard to pull. The other thing is tracking. I'm not too sure how their data set's structured, but other data sets like this, tracking longitudinally companies that are getting sold and entities that are basically just shells, those things can change really, really fast. And for example, we have a student at my institute who spent like an entire PhD just trying to trace one set of companies and how they were bought and sold and turned into different shell companies. So this was kind of some of the machine learning we did on the text, on the headlines, and it was really tricky. Headlines are, you can't do like TF, IDF sorts of things because the inverse document, because each word only appears once in any given headline, really. So inverse document frequency is actually just basically the same as text frequency in most cases for some mapping. So we had to completely reevaluate what we were doing, and that led to what you're going to see in the end here. Okay? So this is something that we came up with. We have a startup data set. We could look at all these relationships, motivated by the fact that I'm not too sure when it started, but probably over the last 20 years, there's been a really strong theme in the business literature and the economics literature, right down to the level where there's actually like pop science types of books being written on the importance of a startup ecosystem. That it's not about having one startup company and then just that company successful or not. It's about surrounding companies with former or current entrepreneurs who have failed, who have experience, who work together, who can give them advice, who can fund them because their companies were successful, all these sorts of things. So we wanted to try and map that out in Italy. So the way we can do that is we have ownership data, so we know who owns what, who owns a piece of what at least. So we have the owners and the startups, and that's a bipartite network. And then you have another bipartite network, which is the employees and the startup, so you know who works in a high-level role, so on a board or as a CEO or something like that. And then you can, oh, sorry, maybe I should just, okay. This is just some sketches, so you can see stuff like this. It's very poor resolution, I apologize. But you have these kind of ideas where you have the bipartite stuff coming in. And then as you'll see, we ended up with a geographic component because the graph for Italy is just, I mean, it's even 2,000 nodes, it's not very informative. So the tools, the scikit-learn was mostly stuff we used in the failed attempt. A lot of Python coding for data cleaning, stuff like that, which I have a lot of experience. Carlo is really good at Bash, so we use that, and then D3 for visualization, which is what you'll see. And then, yeah, so just, this is like a working prototype, kind of. Anybody who was there last night knows that there's obviously bugs in this, potentially big ones, especially because neither of us have worked a lot with HTML, neither of us are designers. So it's missing a lot, but it works, and that is a huge victory, okay? Okay, so. No, I can move the mouse, or it's up to you.
So in the end, we arrived to this very, very simple idea to give a visual representation of Italian startup landscape in a very simple way. The dots, the bullets, are localized on Italian cities, and the bullet size is related to simply to the number of startup companies that are in that city. So in the bigger city, you see the higher number of companies. And the color is the other parameter. The more is red, the higher are the company revenues. Particularly the median of the revenues of all the companies in that city is very simple. So you can immediately understand the situation of startups in Italy. And then we provide a more detailed visualization and related to one single city. Here you can see the bullet in the center represents the city selected, and every dot represents a single company. They are colored, like you see in the right. They are divided by sector of activity. And, sometimes the companies are linked together in case of a link of ownership, or if they have board of directors in commons, manager in commons, important figures. And then with the mouse over, you can see the name of the company. And if you click on it, you see some details about the company, main parameters. It is a very, very simple model. And the external white bullets represents other cities. If a company has links to other cities, they are represented with the white bullet. Of course, this lacks, there is no name of the cities, but we couldn't do it in the time available, so that's basically. And it is possible to see from this representation that there is a general lack of structure, and because only the companies are rarely connected together, they are all alone, and this is probably because there is a lack of financial support to startup companies in Italy. Okay, so this is basically. It's all here. It's very simple. And okay.
Okay.
So, of course, we had these general problems. We lost quite a lot of time in the initial data analysis, only to understand that we couldn't extract good knowledge from the machine learning approach. Then it is a small team. I also am coming from a very different background, so for me it's all new here. So the initial idea was not feasible, and okay, the machine learning we couldn't. Okay, so this is again the summary of what our initial goal was, and so we already said it basically.
Yeah. So on what we ended up with, I mean, the main thing is this. It's really that. There's a lot of hours that went down the tunnel of not being careful about case in my code. The other thing is, like, design is hard. There's a lot more respect now. Part of coming here might have been that I was supposed to go back to my job and take on this type of role in the group. And it's actually, I'm going to go back and I'm just going to say you guys need to set aside a bunch of money. So we need to hire somebody who's really good. By the way, what a job. Yeah, and I mean, the last one is so this is not our fault. This is not the fault of the data set. This is actually just a fact, and it's pretty well known in Europe and in Italy. It's quite a bit worse, is that the network lacks structure because there's a lack of access to risk finance. So I've done previous work using similar types of things on Silicon Valley, and it's extremely dense, and there's a lot of really interesting clustering that happens along disciplines, techniques, different people in the ecosystem. So yeah, so lots could be improved. This is not a finished thing. Okay, and just, yeah, we want to thank by thanking all the teachers. They were awesome, learned a lot. Christian and the TopX organizers, it was probably a long month for them as it was for all of us. Cerved, who was super responsive, giving us data only for us to figure out that we really couldn't go that route, but we really appreciate the responsiveness and the fact that they gave it to us in a very nice format to begin with. And then our fellow divers, this month would have been a lot worse. You guys made it all awesome. So, yeah. And yeah, these are the final thoughts.